Good evening, everybody. This is Rania Al-Maghrabi speaking, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our new webinar on the subject of the effects of DevOps on your IT service organization. This is a new topic. DevOps is a new topic that's receiving interest from the community. And that's shown in our attendees. We have good number of attendees, majority being from Egypt, and we have also attendees from UAE, from Saudi Arabia, from Bahrain, and from the Netherlands. Our webinar is scheduled to last for an hour. And during the webinar, if you have any questions, please post them to the chat area or to the questions area that you can see, so that we can have our speaker answer them for you by the end of the presentation. Let me express our gratitude for our speaker today, Dave van Herpen, for sharing his time and his knowledge with us on this webinar. Dave is a management consultant at Sogeti, Netherlands, and he's a regular presenter and writer on topics such as ITSM, Agile, Lean, DevOps, and related subjects. I'm sure all of you will make the best of benefit of your time with us today. Please note that this webinar is being recorded, and the presentation and other resources related to the subject will be posted to our website after the webinar. Okay, so I leave you now with the presentation, and I hand over to Dave.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Rania, for your introduction. I suppose that the screen is all right now, and that my first slide is showing now. Welcome, everyone, and good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are. And welcome to my webinar on DevOps. I will be talking about DevOps this evening, and especially what it means to your IT service organization. First of all, a very quick overview of what is DevOps. I might give you an overview within, let's say, 10 seconds, because if you look at what DevOps is, it is that you do not do any projects anymore. You do not have the usual silos that were present in your IT organization anymore. You do not have the risks that you were used to in the past, and you can deploy up to 8,000 times faster than you were used to. So that gives quite a big promise on what DevOps really is and what it is supposed to do for your organization. Of course, I will elaborate on all this in the next, let's say, 30-40 minutes, but this gives after that, I will inform you a little bit more about what really Agile Continuous Delivery and DevOps is, and what the impact is on the IT service organization. I hope my screen is still showing because I'm getting some notifications from the webinar tool. I will just continue.
Okay, Dev.
Now,
I think yes. I think your presentation disappeared.
Agile and
I think your presentation disappeared
Agile
there.
and DevOps, they have a lot in common. I will show you later what exactly they have in common. But why are we talking about this? Yes, Rania?
Yes, please. I'm making you presenter again now. I think you had some trouble. Never mind. It's fine.
Did it disappear?
Yeah, just a second. I'm fixing.
Is it here again?
Yes.
Okay.
I tell you, okay.
Sure.
I don't know why.
Now I'm getting the message.
Yes. So I think your screen is showing back now. You can please remove to the move back again to.
I think that it dropped maybe around here.
No, because I think it's interrupted at the first slide after the title slide. I'm sorry. I have to please go back and repeat it. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. I will go back then here because after the title slide. Okay. I will move back to this one.
Yeah, please.
So actually, so if you hear this for the second time, no problem. I will skip through it very fast. So if we want to know what DevOps really is, then what we really should see here is that DevOps is about not having projects anymore. It is about not having the silos in your IT department anymore. It is about not having the risks that you were used to in deploying applications, that you do not have those type of risks anymore, and that you can deploy up to 8,000 times faster than you were used to. So this is a big promise, of course. So this is what DevOps really brings to your organization. I will dive into this much further in the next 30 to 40 minutes, but now you know why we're talking about this. A little bit about myself. I was born in 1974. I work at Sogeti, which we pronounce as Sogeti, in the Netherlands. I'm a management consultant. My expertise is mainly in the IT service management area, but in the last years I have been mostly involved in applying Lean, Agile, and DevOps within those areas, within the area of IT and IT service management. And I also have a big background in sourcing, outsourcing, service integration and management, which is called SIAM. And I have several certifications around ITIL, ISO 20000, and ISO 20000, Lean, Agile, Scrum, SAFe. I'm a SAFe program consultant, and some other ones. Okay, enough about me. What we will do today is we will discuss why we are talking about DevOps. So what are the drivers for DevOps in organizations worldwide? what it really is, and in order to explain what DevOps is, I also have to explain what is Agile and what is continuous delivery, because they are very related to it. And I will explain what DevOps means to your IT service organization. So first, why? Why are we talking about DevOps? And why should we be talking about Agile? Because Agile is very much related to it. I will explain more about the relation between Agile and DevOps later. But first, let's see why we're talking about this. Well, first, many organizations around the globe, and I'm sure you will recognize this, they want to make their customers more happy. And the customers, in a lot of cases, are IT users. And we want to make sure that whatever we are creating and developing, whatever we are doing, that it is all aimed to make that customer more happy. One of the great things about the whole DevOps way of working is that you really involve the business, and that you really involve what we call an agile Okay, I think my connection was lost for some reason somehow. I hope I can be understood again.
Okay, Dave, please continue normally. We missed you from the slide after your profile slide. A slide after your profile slide. We missed you since then.
Okay.
Please.
So you can see this again?
Yes, please. That's fine.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry for that. So why are we talking about Agile, and why are we talking about DevOps here? Well, first, one of the most important things is that in all IT organizations, or all organizations that use IT, we are dealing with IT users, and we want to make those IT users as happy as possible. And using the Agile way of working, which is also very much used in DevOps, we have product owners, and we have people very much involved in our Agile teams, and they are continuously indicating what makes them happy and what they would like to see in the product. So the way of working within Agile and DevOps is that it very much is related to dealing with the business continuously and making that business and the user happy. That's the first driver to do DevOps and Agile. The second one is to have a better optimization of, on the one hand, the value that you want to achieve with your IT, and on the other hand, the risk that is concerned there. Let me show you an example. This is a very interesting curve, which is from Martin Fowler, very well-known technology specialist. And here it shows that if you are building something, so if you are coding something, producing software, and if you are waiting a long time before you release it, so waiting a long time before you put it in production, then the longer you wait before it's in production, the more risk you have. Because if you wait a long time before you put something in production, and you notify that you have made an error, and you want to correct the error, then it will take a lot of time before you have analyzed it. And it will take a lot of time before you have corrected it. So if you would just chop it up into very small pieces and quickly move those pieces throughout the entire chain and quickly put them in production, then your risk will be a lot lower. So that is why the whole way of working from Agile and DevOps is all about making your work packages as small as possible and trying to put them as fast as possible through the entire chain. And that creates a lot better optimization from the value that you get out of it and the risks that you're taking. The third one is about shorter time to market. A lot of businesses nowadays, they have to make sure that they compete well, and if they want to introduce a new product on the market, the whole IT and products that are involved, they have to be on the market quick, really quick. So a short time to market is very crucial to a lot of businesses. And the whole way of working within the Agile and DevOps movement is all about creating fast flow for your products. So if you are releasing software, if you are changing software, if you're building new software or infrastructures or whatever, it's all about making sure that they are very fast on the market and they are very fast in production. Okay. And the fourth one is about efficient operations. So you do not only want to have it with a happy customer, with a low risk and very fast with a short time to market, but you also want to do it cost efficiently. So if you have this situation in your IT department, where on the left you have design, then you have the build department, then you have the testing division, and then you have the operations, and you have different silos with all different frameworks and cultures and department borders, etc., then it will take a lot of time before a product moves from left to right. So the whole way of working within DevOps teams is all about creating multidisciplinary teams. So teams that are where design, build, test, and run and operations are all combined in multidisciplinary teams. And that makes it all efficient operations. So these are the four main business drivers that we see why organizations go to DevOps. Now, before we can say something about DevOps, I'd like to show what Agile and those things are. So Agile, I'm sure a lot of you will already have heard about it or are working with it or have some experience with it. But Agile at itself is not a methodology. Agile is, you could see it as an umbrella for several Agile methods. And probably the most used and documented method worldwide is Scrum, which you can see in the left cloud here. That is by far the most used Agile methodology. You also have Kanban and Extreme Programming and several others, but maybe if you have some Agile experience, I would suppose it is with Scrum. Now, if you look at Scrum, and this is the most used visual for Scrum, then you see that it's very simple. This is the whole process model of Scrum, where you have a product backlog, which are actually your requirements that you have to build. Then you have it chopped down into sprints, which contain sprint backlogs. And each of those sprint backlogs, they have to be, they will contain a number of requirements that you will build within 2 to 4 weeks. So you have very small intervals in which you create a part of the product. And let's say that you take sprints of 2 weeks. you have, at the end of the 2 weeks, you have feedback from your customers and from all the other people that are involved, from all your other stakeholders, whether you are building the right product. So that is a very good feedback mechanism. In addition, you have daily stand-ups, which we call daily scrums, and where you also enable the team to cooperate and to share their experiences and to share possible problems that they see. Now, the real problem with Scrum, in my opinion, is on the right. There it says potentially shippable product increment, which means that the product is on a pallet waiting to be shipped. Now, my question for you is, how much value does it deliver at that time? The answer is 0, because it's on a pallet and it's waiting to be shipped, but it's not used at that time. So Scrum stops at the moment that it doesn't deliver any value. That's kind of strange. You can understand it because Scrum has been created from software development practices, so they only looked at their own software development silo, and they stop at the moment that it's not yet in production. But if you look at it from a value or from a customer perspective, you're missing quite something, because it stops at the moment that you do not want it to stop. And this is exactly where also movements like DevOps have come in, because this way of working has led to the fact that a lot of companies have adopted agile way of working in their software development, so creating a lot of speed in their software development, but at the same time, the operations environment was not able to adopt all those parts of work at the same pace that the software development department was developing. So there was a mismatch in the speed in software development and the speed that operations could cope with this. So that was a real issue, and the DevOps movement has tackled that. Now, if we are talking about DevOps, we also should be talking about continuous delivery, because that is very much related to it. In my view, continuous delivery is about all the automation steps that you have to take to integrate your whole deployment pipeline. So from the moment that you are starting with something in your code, in your software code, until the moment that it is in production, everything that happens in between is supposed to be in one deployment pipeline. That is continuous delivery. And DevOps is all about the collaboration between development and operations, but also with testing or QA and the business and other parties. I will focus on DevOps a little later, but to be sure, continuous delivery and DevOps actually are two different things, where continuous delivery is all about the desired result, right? Because I want to achieve a continuous delivery of products, and the basis is the principles behind it. And on the other hand, I have DevOps, which is more like the way that it is implemented in organizations, because development, and ops, operations, are combined. So you might see those two, development and operations, as one, because they have a lot of overlap. There are some differences. If you look at continuous delivery, I suggest you read this book, because this is quite fundamental. It's a book by Jess Humble and David Farley, and if you want to know anything about continuous delivery, this is the book to read. And continuous delivery is all about matching the pace that development has with the pace and the speed that operations has. And all by doing this is integrating everything that you are doing in your development and operations part into one deployment pipeline. And in order to do this, it has to be automated, because if you have only manual actions, you will never have the speed and that you want to achieve and the quality that you want to achieve. And continuous delivery is about automating your builds. So continuous builds. It's about automating your integrations and your integration tests. It's about automating all the other tests that you can automate. It's about automating your deployment process. And it's about automating your provisioning. So using, for instance, cloud platforms to provision a, for instance, test environment within a matter of seconds or minutes, instead of having to wait 6 weeks for a new test environment. If you have to wait 6 weeks for a new test environment, you can imagine there will not be any speed in your process. So this is actually what continuous delivery is. Now what is DevOps? DevOps started in 2009, and it has actually the name, it comes from Patrick Dubois, which is a Belgian technology specialist, and he came up with the name, and it has been adopted by a lot of countries by now worldwide. And one of the companies that have delivered a lot of good best practices is Flickr. There are a lot of other companies. There are some books and some movements that have very much contributed to the whole DevOps movement, like these. Also, cloud computing is very much fundamental as well. And if you want to read one book about DevOps, I might suggest this one, The Phoenix Project, which is worldwide a bestseller at this moment, and very much focuses on how DevOps should be implemented in your organization and how it can be implemented. It uses a lot of examples. It's a very good book. Now, if you want to look up what DevOps is, you might want to turn to Wikipedia. Don't do it, because Wikipedia, in this case, doesn't give a good definition, unfortunately. Wikipedia says here it's a software development method. Well, that is not true. DevOps is not a software development method. What it is DevOps is all about collaboration. And it's not only about collaboration between dev or development and ops or operations, but actually it's about collaboration between dev, development, ops, operations, but also the customer, the business, security, architecture, testing, suppliers, and support. So actually all the people and all the roles and domains that are involved to deliver good quality IT services, they all should be combined and be collaborating, and that is what we are talking about when we're discussing DevOps. This is the whole philosophy of DevOps. It's about collaboration. So it's collaboration of dev and ops. If you're only talking about combining dev and ops, it's what we call DevOps Lite, because true DevOps is also about involving testing or QA and the business and security and architecture, etc. DevOps is having shippable code and great code, but also having the environments in order to ship them to. So it's more than just having shippable code. DevOps is also about making sure that you have a really fast flow of all the work that you want to have done, and also cutting all your work in as small pieces as possible. So making small batch sizes. And this is quite fundamental, making sure that your production environment is stable, is reliable, is secure, and very, very much resilient. So that if something breaks, your environment should be able to adapt to it and to learn from it. That is the whole philosophy of DevOps. Now, what are the relations from DevOps with other methodologies and things that are themes that are occurring in our market? First, DevOps is very much related to Agile, because the Agile way of working with Scrum teams, with product owners, with fast feedback loops, sprints, retrospectives, and all those things that you see in Agile and visualization, they are very much used also in DevOps environments, because it has a lot of value for the teams to work in an Agile way. Second, Lean is also very much, DevOps is very much based on Lean principles, like achieving fast flow and getting a pull system in place, which makes sure that all the people in the teams pull the actions that have to be done by the teams towards themselves. Instead of getting told what to do, they just pull the actions towards themselves. And that is typically from one of the Lean things. DevOps also is very much related to the theory of constraints, which is about removing bottlenecks. And so you look for one bottleneck in your process, you remove it, then you move to the next bottleneck, you remove it, etc. DevOps is, of course, very much related to ITIL as well. In ITIL, there are a lot of very good processes, but a lot of those processes, they might be a little bit too slow, or they might be a little bit too big or too complex. So DevOps, of course, is using a lot of the ITIL process frameworks, so like change management and the release management processes, but making sure that they also work for fast delivery of products. So we see a lot of adjustments or adaptations or light versions of Agile, or of ITIL. Cloud is also very much related here, where using cloud to get environments like test environments or acceptance environments or production environments into the air as soon as possible, then you rely a lot on cloud as well. And last but not least, application lifecycle management is also very much related to DevOps, because what you're doing in DevOps is actually combining all the components and all the parties that are involved in the whole application lifecycle. You're combining them in integrated DevOps teams. So actually you're combining the application lifecycle. So there's a lot of benefit there. Now, typical things that you will encounter and typical terms that you will encounter in DevOps environments are continuous build, continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous delivery, etc. Now, what I would like to address here is that, and I'm using the CAMS pillars for this, which is very famous in the DevOps movement. I want to illustrate that DevOps is not only about tooling, it's not only about the technology, but first, and maybe the most important one, I really know that this is the most important one, is culture. Because if you want to move to multidisciplinary teams, combining development and operations, then I can assure you this will deliver some cultural issues. And you have to tackle those. Developers might be different than people from operations. And if they are combining, if they are collaborating, there's a lot of benefit for the organization, but it might take a considerable cultural shift here. So really extensive change management is really necessary there. Of course, there's a very important automation part where releases are automated, configuration and version control is very crucial here. Continuous integration is done, and monitoring provides a lot of insight for developers and operations people to have a good control over your system. The M stands for metrics or measurement, and this means that you're using different kind of metrics in these organizations. You're focusing on the number of because you want to create multidisciplinary teams to create as low overhead as possible, to create as low handovers as possible. And last but not least, one of the people metrics might be the number of people or persons that are involved in a typical deployment. Also those you want to keep as low as possible to automate the process as much as possible. And last but not least, sharing. So making sure that you have, for instance, by co-locating the development and operations people, making sure that they are in the same room, where you have a continuous feedback loop. What happens in development, what happens in operations, who can tackle this, can you help me here? So a lot of communication there occurs. Okay, so if we now know what DevOps is, we know that it's collaboration, and we know that it's about combining development and operations and all the other functions around it. How can we see this in an IT service context? Well, if we look at DevOps, then the focus of the whole DevOps movement has been a lot in the past years on standardization, on automation. So all the things that we've talked about with tools, automating tests, automating deployments, etc. And it's also very much focused on new technologies. If you look at the tools that are very apparent here, they're mostly focused on things like Java or Microsoft or those kind of technologies. But if you look at most organizations that we're dealing with, they're not only dealing with new technologies, they're dealing with older, with legacy systems, with core systems, mainframe, those kind of things. So I see an under-focus, which has been in DevOps, on these things. And if you look at DevOps in a total IT service context, these are exactly things that you would have to address. You would have to look at making sure that you are dealing with the right business context. And if you're focusing in putting your development and operations team together, and you're focusing on getting speed in your deployments, you might run into the risk that you are forgetting about the business. But if you have a solid business information management function that makes sure that the business is always present, whether you call it a product owner or how you want to call it, it's up to you, but you have to make sure that that part is very much taken care of. In addition, we see that there's an under-focus on the IT support part. So we're very much focused in DevOps on getting deployments from build to production. But if you are joining the teams of development operations, there are also a lot of advantages of getting good support to your users. But there's some under-focus on this. Also, portfolio management has been under-focused. And so how are you dealing with portfolios? I also already indicated the legacy systems that you have to deal with. And of course, if you are dealing with DevOps, this has a considerable impact on your IT service organization, so also on your people. And this means that you have to change the behavior and competences of your people. Now let's dive into these. By the way, I call this enterprise DevOps. And I have 10 rules, and if you follow these 10 rules, then you should be able to run DevOps also in your total IT service context, so in your, as you might say, your enterprise context. The first rule is DevOps engineers do not exist. This might be a little bit confusing, but what I mean with this is that there's no such thing as one person who can do everything, who can develop and test and operate and do all those things equally good. There will always be developers that know about operations, and there will always be operators. But what you want to achieve is that that you might have developers who know a little bit about testing as well, but also know a little bit about operations. And you want to have operations people who also know a little bit about development and also can help the tester. If the tester is stuck in his work, he can help testing. So that is the whole multidisciplinary aspect. So this does not mean that you will only have generalists, This will still mean you have some specialists, but you have to make sure that the specialists also have some other competences, not only their own. This is very much in line with the second one. You have to facilitate multidisciplinarity in your teams. So making sure that if the people or if someone from operations is in your multidisciplinary team and notices that the developer is behind his work, then the operations guy might help making the documentation, creating the documentation. Or if the developer has notified that the tester is full of work, he might join the tester and do the tests, all in the service of the team. The other one is what I indicated, do not forget about the business. So make sure that whatever you're trying to achieve in automating your processes, never forget about the business. Always keep in mind, if we can speed up the process, is the business really up to this? Is the business really asking for deployment per day or deployment per week or speedy deployments at all? So always keep your business very much involved and making sure that you're making the right decisions there. Number 7, and we're counting down by the way, is not only focus on releasing products, but also focus on including the support. So if you have the multidisciplinary teams, use those multidisciplinary teams to optimize your support. And have, for instance, have the developer also answer questions from users. If the guy from operations or the girl or the woman from operations or whatever is quite busy at this time. So that is the whole thing about the multidisciplinarity that I discussed. Also, balance your portfolio. So make sure that not only you have the specific teams working on their own backlogs, but make sure that the balance between all those teams and the combination that they have to make towards the entire portfolio, the service portfolio, is guarded and maintained at all times. So make sure that you do not forget about portfolio management here. Continuously look for your bottlenecks, and what is important here is that if you want to improve your processes or your services, and you might want to use, for instance, CSI for this or any other improvement approach, always make sure that you're improving on your bottlenecks, because any other improvement not made at the bottleneck is considered waste. So make sure that whatever you are improving, make sure that you're improving your bottleneck. That is a blessing. Now, number 4, make sure that you realize that not everything that you want to do can be automated. Of course, you want to automate as much as possible, but there will always be parts of your support or of your service organization that you cannot automate. Make sure that you can deal with those. So make sure that you have the instruments to also deal with the parts that you cannot automate. Do not over-focus on automation here. Now, number 3. This is a cultural one. In a lot of DevOps organizations, the way that they approach risks is very important. So if you have an organization where if someone encounters an error and if he sees something has gone wrong, so an incident has occurred or the system has gone down and someone has found where the error is, you should reward the people that find the errors. Because if you punish people who find errors, then you will never have a culture where people will actually learn from the errors. Because errors will be covered up instead of being notified and being brought out into the open. So this is a very important thing that you might have to want to consider in your IT organization, that you want to reward all the people that are taking risks and notifying error. This is a different approach to risk management. Number two, I discussed this before, is make sure that there where you are able to use cloud technology for instance, for provisioning your environments, your test environments or your production environments, make sure that you use the cloud as much as possible there. And last but not least, make sure that you do not neglect your core systems. If you have front ends which are built in Java, of course it's very easy to find the right tools and to have those people work in a DevOps context and make sure that they it's also about your mainframes or your backend systems. Also those, you might want to profit from the DevOps way of working. In my own environments, I've also encountered a lot of benefits by using the DevOps approach also in those mainframe types of environments. Please do not neglect those, because if you neglect this, all you will have is another silo which is called mainframe, where all the fancy and nice things are happening in the new technology environments and departments, where you're creating a separate silo for your mainframe systems with different processes, with different ways of working. So please do not forget that. Okay, so what I've tried to do here is indicate what is DevOps and what the value might be to your organization. Also, what you should think of if you want to include DevOps in your way of working and embrace the whole, all the benefits that are from DevOps, including tooling, but also the culture aspects and the process possibilities there, like multidisciplinary teams, that there are, of course, some things that you have to take into account, which the last 10 rules of enterprise DevOps have shown. I've tried to indicate what kind of benefits you could have from DevOps, also in your server organization. If you want to know a little bit more about enterprise DevOps, I would suggest you read the white paper. There's a link here below that you might find interesting, which is a white paper about enterprise DevOps. If you have via Twitter or LinkedIn or email. And I don't know if there are any questions at this time, Rania.
And how it relates to other concepts,
Rania, are you there? I can't hear
and
you.
how it can be put in a practical context.
Yes.
Okay, we have one question for you that we received from one of the audience. We have a question we received from one of the audience before the webinar. The question is, if DevOps helps the IT department get new releases into production faster, that's what you mentioned as time to market. Yeah. Who helps the users to use the systems well and realize the envisaged value? Or to use a transport metaphor, like by analogy, if the IT department just builds cars, who helps the drivers to get to their destination?
Okay, right. Okay, so what we're talking about here is actually one of the rules that was in here. I think it was rule number 5. It was include IT support. That is related to this question, because if you want to embrace DevOps, you should not only focus on getting releases deployed as fast as possible, but also make sure that your IT environment and your teams are equipped to also support the current users. Because as soon as a product, software or infrastructure or whatever has gone live, people will start using it, and they will have questions, and they will need to have support for it, or they might want to have changes for this, or so as soon as a product will be used, you will need to support this. So what is very crucial here is that you do not only equip your DevOps teams for getting speed in your delivery process, but you also equip them with the right tools and the right knowledge and the right processes to support the people that are currently using the products. What I personally love is the BISL framework. I'm not sure if you're already familiar with this, but it's the BISL, and really you should Google it because it's a really valuable framework which is very focused on use management and functional user support and all the things that are not about the technical things around IT and IT support, but mostly about the functional part. So how can we support the users here and make sure that that we can equip the users with the right knowledge and the right support and the right functionalities that they use. So it's a very good question, and it's something that you really have to make sure that you include this in your team and in your processes and in your organization.
Yes, okay. Thank you, Dave, for your time with us today and for sharing your knowledge. And thank you, everybody, for attending. Please, if you have any questions after the webinar, you can send to us or you can send to Dave directly at his email that you can see in front of you. Also, please don't forget to visit our website, eaitsm.org. You can see all of our initiatives. You can join membership, and we'll have the annual conference next month on October. You can also join by presenting in the conference if you like, or just by attending and listening to other presentations. Okay, thank you so much, and see you in future events.
Thank you.